those natural disasters. My personal contribution on that occasion and since to turning around the misconceptions about conditions here was only a very small part of the extraordinary effort which has been put in by government, industry, and the community at large to rebuild our state and the Queensland brand. Many of the education and training providers here today are local businesses which have been part of that effort, calling on the adaptability, the entrepreneurial flair, and the sheer stamina which have made them so successful in the past and have enabled them to meet challenges every bit as daunting as floods and cyclones. I refer, of course, to the many, often unpredictable changes in the environment in which those in the business of providing education and training today have to work. And in particular, I'm referring to the time since the global financial crisis. In preparation for this conference and for this morning's opening, I spent considerable time reading material on the comprehensive ACPET website, trawling back through scores of media releases, reading the reports on last year's national conference, digesting myriad articles and commentaries, and I must say, taken overall, it was pretty sobering reading. In fact, the large media archive on the ACPET website reminded me of nothing so much as Queen Elizabeth's description of 1992 as her annus horribilis. While the Queen had to contend with a major fire at Windsor Castle, the publication of a tell-all book by Princess Diana, and 2 separations and a divorce among her 4 children, this sector, your education and training sector, it seems to me, has had its own period of horrors, and for longer than a year. In fact, your very own annae horribiles, to put it in the plural, since the Australian economy was hit in March 2009 by that first quarter of negative growth in 8 years. And as with 1992 for the Queen, the period since March 2008 has been marked for this industry by unhelpful media attention to the negative and sensational, with tabloid headlines and articles peppered richly with the slang of the Australian vernacular. Immigration scams, student rip-offs, rogue colleagues, shonky agents, dodgy providers, racist violence, earnings in free fall, enrolments plummet, visa breaches mounting. Every single one of those taken from clippings and articles on the ACPET website over the past couple of years. Fact and truth are often the victims in such reporting, but it is worth noting that almost 20 years after the Queen's speech to the Guildhall, her words on that occasion are still remembered clearly, more clearly than many of the positive things that have occurred since. The lessons in this for Australia's international education and training providers are obviously that the unattractive picture painted of Australia, Australian education, and Australians will not be easily erased, and that it will take many more years of solid, fact-based public relations, careful marketing, and particularly care for international students if the reputation and economic success of Australian education is to be fully restored and the industry to stay competitive. Fortunately, it's also clear when one reviews developments through this very difficult and challenging period, this period of crisis, as ACPET described it in a very recent message to members. This is precisely what has been happening. Away from the heat, the noise of the dramatic high points and the headline grabs that sell newspapers, there has been much focused hard work, advocacy and negotiation and strategising to address problems, to change negative perceptions and to bring about the regulatory change and the procedural reform which will strengthen not only the operation but the reputation of an industry which nobody in this audience needs reminding, but sometimes others do, is now Australia's most valuable service export and vitally important to the Australian economy. And looking at the bigger picture and wearing my former diplomatic hat, I would add also of major importance to Australia's foreign relations and the management of relations with our partners in the Asia-Pacific region now and in the future. The future, of course, is set as the theme of this conference, as it was for yesterday's forum. The future of tertiary education, the future of international education in the Asia-Pacific. And no doubt the choice was logical for an organisation, an industry, which defines its purpose as creating futures. But there possibly could be no more important time than now to set the future as the framework